So this is the box to this black shimmer wall, and this is a different brand than the gold shimmer wall that I did a video on about 2 years ago. And I will leave the link to that video in the comment section. I'll pin it to the top. But this box comes with 12 panels, and each panel is 12 inches by 12 inches. It also comes with a bag of hooks, some gloves, some spare shimmer pieces, and some zip ties. Now, in comparison to my gold wall, this wall is cheaper. This wall is about $40 a box in comparison to the gold wall, which is about $60 a box. Also, these panels, it doesn't matter where you position them, the shimmer pieces fall correctly. On the gold wall, you have to position the gold panels in a specific direction in order to get the shimmer pieces to fall correctly. Now, these panels come with little clips, and so does the gold wall. However, these clips are a little bit more flimsier than my gold wall. In fact, the whole backing seems to be made out of cheaper material than the gold panels, which is probably why it costs less. Now, one thing you want to do is make sure that the panels on your backing are facing the same direction, so all facing horizontally before you clip them. Now, you cannot rely on just the clips for these panels. Okay, you have to use the zip ties, and that's the same thing with the gold wall, but these panels are even more likely to come apart if you just use the clips. So I'm going row by row. So I clip them together first, and then I'm going to use the zip ties and zip tie each end. So one zip tie on each end of each panel on each side to make sure that they're nice and secure. Now, one other pro about this shimmer wall is that it is lightweight. Because it's made out of a more flimsier material, that material is lighter. Okay, so it is easier to handle than my gold wall, which is made out of heavier, but yet more sturdier material. So it's kind of a trade-off. You know, you're choosing between a more lightweight product versus one that might be, less secure and sturdy. So notice how I switched the positioning of that panel right there. You know, I want to make sure that the backing, all of the backing is horizontal and it's not facing the opposite direction. So again, I'm just clipping those clips on each side. So on those panels, I'm clipping them on the left side and the top and bottom. And then I'm doing zip ties, 2 to each side to make sure it's nice and secure. Now, my wall is going to be 7 feet tall by 4 feet wide. And I purchased 3 boxes of these panels. So that's a total of 36 panels, which would make for a wall that is 6 by 6 feet. So you can use this sizing to decide how big you want your wall to be. So this is how it looks so far. This is about 8 panels clipped together, and see how lightweight that is. Again, my wall is 7 feet tall by 4 feet wide, and I purchased enough panels for a 6 feet by 6 feet wall. So now I'm going to go and attach my wall to my backdrop stand. So these are some larger zip ties. You can buy these anywhere at the 99-cent store, at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's. And basically, you're just going to zip tie the top of the wall to the top bar. And I'm zip tying it at least 4 places. And you want to pull that wall up as much as possible so you can really get that wall to cover up the top bar. Now, I would recommend getting black zip ties so you don't see them. And now I'm just lifting the sides up to the height that I need it to be, which is 7 feet. So just go from side to side if you're doing this by yourself, and just take your time. And then after you do this, you're going to zip tie the sides of the wall to the side bars of the backdrop stand. So now I'm just showing you how I replace a piece. If a piece is falling off, you know, I just stick that hole into the peg, and that's how I replace my shimmer pieces. And now I'm going to be adding a cloth to the back so you don't see through the back of this shimmer wall. I'm using some backdrop clips to hold the cloth in place. And then I'm going to use some Gorilla Tape to tape the fabric to the back of the bar of my backdrop stand. So I'm not taping it to the wall itself, but to the bar of my backdrop stand. Okay. And I'm just using enough tape to get it nice and sturdy on there. If this was outdoors, you would also want to tape the sides of the cloth as well. Or you can keep the backdrop clips, but I decided not to use them. So I've been seeing a lot more balloon designers skipping out on 11 and 12-inch balloons and just using 18 and 5-inch balloons. So I'm going to semi-try this. So I have some red balloons and some black balloons in 18 inches and 5 inches. And I'm going to blow these 18-inch balloons up to different sizes. So I blew this up to about 16 or 17 inches. and I'm just gonna twist and tie into a dupe. And then I'm gonna blow some of them up to about 13 or 14 inches and then tie those into dupes. And then I'm gonna make my clusters for my balloon garland base out of these balloons. So I'm not using any 11 or 12-inch balloons for these two colors. I'm just gonna use the 18-inch balloons blown up to various sizes. So now I'm gonna twist together 3 dupes of balloons to make a cluster. So 2 of my dupes are gonna be the 18-inch balloons that were blown up to about 13 or 14 inches. And then another dupe is gonna be blown up to about 16 or 17 inches. And I'm gonna double twist into a cluster. I'm gonna do the same thing with my black clusters. 3 dupes to a cluster. So I'm gonna also be adding these chrome silver balloons, but I only had the 11-inch size in this color. So I'm gonna twist together 5 dupes in a cluster to make it about equal to the size of the red and black clusters. So you want to make sure that you double twist these dupes into the cluster so they don't pop out. So now I'm going to take a 260Q balloon, and this is Sempertex brand, and this is just the long stringy balloon that you make balloon animals out of. And I'm going to tie it together into a rubber band. And then you want to wrap the 260Q around one balloon in one cluster, and then wrap that same 260Q around a couple balloons in another cluster. And this is how you're going to be attaching these clusters. And I did this for 6 clusters. So I added 1 red, 1 black, 1 silver. And with the silver cluster, I was able to add in like 3 balloons because the balloons are smaller in the silver cluster. And then I did the same pattern again, red, black, and silver. And so this is what my balloon garland base looks like. And if you notice, it's much thicker than my normal balloon garland bases because I use mostly 18-inch balloons. So now I'm going to attach my balloon garland to my backdrop stand. So that's the side pole to my backdrop stand. I'm using a 260Q balloon. I'm just going to wrap it around one balloon in the balloon garland and then tie the 260Q into itself. And that's how I'm attaching my balloon garland base to my shimmer wall backdrop. And I'm attaching it at multiple points at the bottom and the top to make sure it's nice and secure. So now I want to beef up this balloon garland. So I'm adding in clusters of 2 dupes. And those are the 18-inch balloons blown up to about 13 or 14 inches. And I'm adding them with a 260Q balloon. Just wrap a 260Q around one of the balloons in the pre-existing balloon garland and then tie the 260Q into itself. And I'm doing the same thing with the black cluster. Those are 2 dupes or 4 balloons. And I'm just going up the balloon garland and just adding in smaller clusters. Now for the silver cluster, I decided to go ahead on and add 3 dupes or 6 balloons because the balloons are smaller. Then for that next red cluster, I'm just going to add 1 dupe. And for the black cluster, I'm just going to add 1 dupe. And then for that top silver cluster, I'm adding 2 dupes or 4 balloons at the very top. Now, as I'm adding, I'm also rearranging the balloons to get them to sit the way I like. And I decided to add another dupe right there at that the bottom for the red cluster. So now I'm adding my 5-inch clusters. I'm just going to twist 2 dupes together, and I'm going to cut my 260Q balloon and just use a half of a 260Q to attach these to my balloon garland. So I'm going to show you up close how I attach them. I just take the 260, wrap it around one balloon in the balloon garland, and then tie the 260Q balloon into itself. And that's how I'm adding these smaller clusters. And actually, that's how I added all my clusters, the same way. Notice how I'm adding my smaller 5-inch clusters at a ratio of about 2 smaller clusters to each large cluster. And I'm doing this because I want to make sure that I'm not overcrowding my garland with small clusters because it will start to look sloppy. The bottom of my garland, where those red balloons are, I'm going to add a cluster of 4 balloons or 2 dupes to fill that out. And then I had to rearrange those silver balloons at the top so they'll lay flat and look neater. So lastly, I'm going to add my sign and my marquee numbers. This is a graduation themed balloon garland, so this is for the year 2024. So here's a finished product to my black shimmer wall graduation theme balloon garland setup. Now, for those of you who are curious, I made my sign out of foil poster board and I used my Cricut machine. I did make a video on how I made this sign, so I will post the link to that video and pin it to the top of the comment section. I will do the same thing with the tutorial on how I made those marquee numbers. And I will also pin a link to all of the materials I used, from the shimmer wall pieces to the balloon brands and sizes. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, go ahead on and like it, and please subscribe, and you'll get notifications on future videos on balloon and event decor. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.